Everything to me is like I say, it's like breathing. It's just there. There's no boundary for me in between going to sleep at night and waking up in the morning and painting a painting. They're all together. And I think it was William Blake that said, religion is the art of creating oneself. And I get that, you know. Everything that we do is beautiful and wonderful and God-given. A good way I think about it is like God's excited every day to find out what we're going to create on this earth. And I want to do my part because I can't think of anything else that's worth doing. I started painting in 2015. I would go to work pipelining. I wanted to be a welder. Welding and painting, drawing that line is the same thing, basically. And it's almost like in welding it's called carrying a puddle. And with that, you're carrying that puddle of paint. When I would come home, you know, for work, I would paint houses. I got a good friend who was a house painter, and he was willing to take the time and be patient with me to show me. And my first painting jobs with Levy weren't good at all. You know, they were not. And I wanted so bad to get good at it. Sometimes I would quit because I couldn't be good enough, you know, and I would go home and I would cry and say, you know, like what am I gonna do with my life if I can't even paint a house, you know? House painting, there's a huge curve in it, you know. That anybody can go paint their house, but it takes someone with a lot of practice to do it, to where you're kind of shooting for perfection. I wanted to master something. It felt comfortable, like I knew as long as I was painting a house, then I couldn't really go wrong. One day, I was around a bunch of people and I asked a girl on a date and she told me no. And I was like, you know what? I don't have time for this. And I went home and I had a big piece of wood and I took the wood and I set it on some stands outside, and I didn't have a clue how to paint. I would draw check marks and stick figures, and I would write stuff on it, and I set it on fire. And it was outside, so it was safe, but I set it on fire and I put jokes on it and glued things on it. And, it felt so good, you know. It was like one of the best feelings that I'd ever had. That flow of energy, like something coming from higher than me, into me and then through me without anything blocking it. It was like dancing.
Yeah, he started out as a house painter, which was so interesting. And then I think he had a breakup with a girl or something like that and was frustrated, and he just started painting how he felt. He actually paints his feelings.
What I started was I painted my bedroom wall with house brushes, and then I painted our coffee table. Then my buddy, he got mad and was like, you gotta quit painting our stuff. You need to go get some canvases. And I had never really seen anybody paint. So I went to Walmart and got like 99-cent paints and canvases. And then like from there, I was painting like 2 or 3 a day. Like I had no worries. I would just paint. At first, like I would be somewhere and I would start shaking. And I would just go home, and while I'm painting, I'm just shaking. It was like, so I couldn't do it fast enough.
I think once he starts painting, it's almost like he becomes manic, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know having an artist brother, I think that's what talented people do.
I like the energy of it. I like the rawness of it. I like the unrefinedness of it. It's just all over the place, but for some reason when it's put onto the confinements of a canvas, it's just like a little snapshot of frenetic energy.
Got to be something there that people ponder in order for people to be obsessed with what you're doing. I think that he certainly has that quote-unquote mystery box in his work. I can see it there.
And I began to study about what other painters were doing because I didn't have any knowledge about any kind of art. I was painting stick figures because that's all I knew, and like smiley faces and writing things and layering and layering and layering. Some things were intuitive, like colors, I'd always just colors was kind of my thing already, and I would study everything I could find, everything, and I watched documentaries. I would paint till I got too tired I couldn't paint anymore, and then because I had to sleep for work or whatever, and I would go to sleep watching documentaries. The more that I paint, the more techniques I remember, the more tools that go in my tool belt, the more it influences everything. But there's a difference on it being some sort of resistance or something that's positive and adds to. And that's kind of a fine line, and maybe on the inside I try to ride that line and what's resistance and what is a springboard into more creativity. And that's an adventure. And so everybody around me influences that. Everybody I meet, whether it's a stranger or my mom that passed away, or my dad, or my brother, or some guy walking down the street.
This was one of his newer ones that I just loved. I thought it was so interesting. And it says on the back, he writes on the back, "Bring the sky and the mind will follow. Jump on mountains and rest your home." So I mean, this is, how would you ever get that from looking at this? A lot of his paintings have angels in them, which is real interesting. It shows kind of how he feels about life and maybe afterlife and all, having lost his mother, and who we were so close to. But, and he says, each moment is critical, which is so true in life. We never know what's going to happen next. And so I think that it is critical. Who you meet and how you treat people and how you relate to people is critical.
There's a lot of emotions behind it all, and not all of them are positive. They're all beautiful. They all can be something more than what they are, but there are some really raw, angry, scary things that add the base to it all. Yeah, I was bounced around as a kid. Like my second day of school, I remember my first day of first grade, they actually pulled me out of class and gave me a test, like the first or second day of school. And then the very next day, they had me in the honors classes. And then the very next day, my dad came and like took us out of school and brought us to Texas and put us on a ranch. And so I was raised on a 2,000-acre ranch out there. Every weekend, we would go to a Mesquite Championship rodeo and bring bucking bulls, and I would get on the horse, and I was too little, but I would follow behind them on my little Welch pony, and they would load the bulls and things like real cowboy, like being on a ranch and a range. It was a 2,000-acre ranch, and the fun was my brother and I, Marty, we would build clubhouses all over the place, and that was fun. It was an experience that I wouldn't change for anything in the world. I would be interested in stuff, and you know, my dad, he really wanted me to be a cowboy, and so he would say like, you know, you should just come work, and I had to wake up every day and go out there, and I was too young to work, but I would have to be watching him work and loading cattle and things like that, and I would just be wanting to go to the skating ring and try to learn how to dance and things like that. Rollerblade and play hockey, and then it got into skateboarding, and then breakdancing and playing the guitar. Eccentric stuff, I don't know why. I don't know how many choices I actually get to make in my life ever, you know, but there's always some force behind it all. I was a young kid and I felt like there was some truths on my heart, and I would get in trouble for it. You know, if I was to follow those truths, then I would be in trouble. I always wanted to be somewhere else than where I was, I can tell you that. It was hard, you know, it was hard. It was like being in a cage that's too small for you, you know. We would travel with the PBR my dad and I, every Wednesday we would show up. We would set up the arenas to unload the bulls, and I would be the person that like took care of the bulls and things like that. And while I was setting up the arena one day, my brother came and he was like, Cody wants to see you in his office, and Cody's the vice president of the PBR. And I was like, oh man, I'm in trouble, and I was really afraid. And so I crawled in his office, and he was like, dance. And I said, are you serious, Mr. Cody? He said, dance. And I said, okay, here, hold my hat. I gave him my hat, and I broke it down, and he said, quote unquote, can you make Flint go out there and look stupid? And Flint was like the entertainer for him. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, well, I'm gonna call you, you get behind the chutes, and I'm gonna call you out in the middle of the bull riding, and y'all gonna have a dance competition. So I went out there, immediately, you know, when they called me out there, I just, like it was home to me. They had like 8,000 people in the crowds, and I was like, come on, yeah. And everybody was yelling and screaming. I hopped up on the stage and broke it down. A few weeks later, I got a call, and they wanted to fly me to Spokane, Washington. And when I went, they didn't even give me a microphone. And they didn't tell me what to do or anything. I had never really had imagined that I would do that. And I didn't have a plan. And I did it again in Augusta, Georgia. And then just living on the ranch is not very much fun, so I left, you know. I went to California 3 times. I lived in Maui, North Carolina, New Orleans 3 times, Lake Charles, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, you know, and more, Texas, Oklahoma. I have to work really hard at like creating joy, you know, because I had never really found much of. From an early age, I wanted to have a family. I wanted to feel love, because love is like something, you know, love's where it's at, you know, but how do you do that, you know? And people are expressing love in action, and every action that I ever seen anybody do was like they was lying to themselves, and they weren't really there when they were doing it. And so like I was like, I'm going to dedicate my life to that. I would, no matter what, I was gonna find out what was like on my heart to live, you know? Because I felt like a lot of people sacrifice that, you know? That there's just things on our heart to do, and we don't do them out of fear, because we were scared we might lose some security. And for whatever reason, I've never had security. There was enough that happened in my early life to propel me to want to be an overcomer. But fundamentally, my first memories are seeking. Like, I remember looking in the mirror and there was wonder. It was like, why am I here? What is this? The next thing after that is like this natural propulsion to discover. And I was just like a sponge, that it's right here. What am I gonna do? It's right here, so let's do it, you know. I want to meet the challenge of life, you know what I mean?
He's very religious, and he's very bright, and he knows so much about different religions and different things he studied. He's just, and I think his intuitiveness is what has sparked his interest in so many things.
When I was 18, I started going to clubs and things like that, and I saw break dancers, and I thought they was the coolest people, you know. And it was always about like wanting to find really cool ways to express myself. The difference between strange actions and dance is a little bit of beat, with some rhythm, you know what I mean? So, and rhythm brings us back a little bit to the earth, you know. You can either come from your soul and your body will move out, or you move your body in weird ways and it'll reach your soul. Just like exercise, you know, you go moving your body around, things like that, you feel better, you know, getting that energy flowing. There were certain things that I can do, certain experiences that bring a lot of joy in that moment, that rush of energy. Dancing's probably like the best way, really, you know. The quickest and the easiest and the purest and the most primitive. It gets down to a lot of the bottom of it all. But I had kind of like felt some energy and stuff like that whenever I was in church. kind of started with prayer, because one of the awesome things about prayer is like you don't need anything outside of you to do it. In the highest moments of prayer, dance kind of happens, you know, it really does. The first stage of like meditation, it would seem blank, you know, it seemed like nothing. And then that nothingness, there's an energy, there's love in there. We spend so much time wasting our energy with our minds and like all this just going on, and so much energy is dispersed, but when you stop it and that energy builds up and it has to move, and whenever that energy moves, it will move in a way that we've never moved before.
And I think that's what his art shows. It's like his art is actually an expression of his dancing, the freedom, and that was, you hit the nail on the head, the freedom he feels in his art.
Because that's the whole reason why I paint, is because it allowed me for the first time, one thing that even dance really can't do is bring people into my world. And I would always have to submit into other people's world. And I just wanted to be me, you know? And one of the things that painting did is like gives me an opportunity to bring people into who I am on the inside.
Well, it seems like he's got, like, with every one of his pieces, he has some, going back to narrative, he has some kind of narrative going throughout, or at least it's just a showcase of the things that are going on in his head at the time. It may not be on the nose right away, but you can tell that there's some kind of story within.
I don't connect with his story behind it. I just connect with the imagery that I see. I mean, and I do. I absolutely love them. I mean, I especially love this one. Mm-hmm. But I can't. It's hard to pinpoint why, you know, because it's unlike anything else that I own, and I think that's part of the appeal of it. I mean, because it is so, you know, it's chaos on a canvas, you know, which is kind of destined. If you would flatten him out and spread him out over a canvas, that's what it would look like.
I used to come back and talk about it to people and say like, hey man, this and this and this and this is what I believe and things like that. And that always fell short. And whoever I was when I experienced whatever I experienced is totally different when I talk about the experience or try to share it with somebody. But whenever I paint it, you know, when I paint it, for whatever reason, they're alive. I love that about art. You know, I see how science can fall short, how religion can fall short, how philosophy is just about falling short, you know, but music, art, it's alive and it just goes and grows, and it's like a mirror to ourselves, you know. Like when you ask me the significance or the influence between dancing and painting and how they come together. Both are beautiful, both are inexpressive movements. But for me, like, it's genuinely so much deeper. And it's not really that deep, it's like so simple in the fact that it's like breathing. We breathe, and we're not asking to breathe. And so, I didn't ask to be how I am, you know. I don't ask to see things how I do, and yet I see them and I do it. The struggle is to like follow what's on your heart, and so, and I think that courage behind it and dedication and belief is like where it all comes from, like the power comes from that belief. And so I believe in each one of the paintings. Like I might not believe it, so you know, a lot of times my head will be like, you know, give up, you can't do this, there's no way you'll be able to do it. But on my heart, it's like this feeling that like this is my job, this is what I'm put here to do. Sometimes I'll be painting at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it seems like the world's asleep, and I'm in there painting like my life depends on it. I think every painting is like a war, and it's not a war so much with other people or anything like that, or with the world. It's like a war between my thoughts of doubt. So it's like my paintings are a challenge, like what are we gonna do about it? You know, are we willing to stand up? Are we willing to like find out what's on our hearts? And so I want each one of my paintings to kind of be proof that it's okay, you know, for us to do that, because I was always told that it wasn't okay. to do that.
I mean, I was drawn to it, and then everybody that comes over here, and I have plenty of other stuff to look at, but they're always, I mean, inevitably people are like, oh, these are cool. And these could be like farmers, you know, I grew up in a rural community, and they're like, oh, that's cool. You know, I like this beauty. Is this the same guy? You know, then inevitably you get that kind of a thing. Yeah, it is interesting that it draws people to ask about it, you know, whereas none of my other paintings do. Literally not one.
He seemed like an old soul, certainly. Someone that will take the time out, you know, even though he's got a busy schedule, you know, it's just ingrained in him to stop and talk, you know. I think that's the job of art, right? It's just to start a conversation, to give you a certain narrative, either a very specific one, or maybe even give you breadcrumbs and start you along your way and get your own interpretation of it. But it's, if the art isn't making you stop and think about the reasons why or what's within in terms of the message, then I don't know if it's doing its job, you know?
It's a feeling behind it all, you know, that the necessity to make something that I've never seen before. I have a thought about something good happening to me, and at first the thought may be like I don't deserve it, you know. It's like, because I'm always looking up to other people, you know, and I think, well, I don't deserve it. But then the next thought is like, I worked so hard at it, and my whole life I breathe it, you know, and I'm believing, and I'm doing every single thing that I possibly can to just dig. I think maybe that's why my paintings are like they are. Like, they are everything, you know. They're me on that canvas. They're us. You know, it's every girl that's broke my heart, every friend that's ever smiled at me, everybody that's supported me, every person that's doubted me. There are a lot of people that doubt me in there. I genuinely wake up every day thinking that today all my dreams are coming true. Every day. And it was not like that. I used to wake up and ask God not to let me wake up, to please let me go back to sleep, you know. And that's enough, man. The greatest thing about this life is to see other people recognize the blessings, the positivity in the universe, because it looks so negative, you know. There's something I think about art and painting that's kind of destructive, you know, because I think that comes from the fact that our paintings live on. You know, like I would paint a painting and it could last forever, and I'm a lot more temporary than one of my paintings. But whenever I'm dead and gone, I want it to keep going after me and not to be way more than I ever was. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff that I can do with other people in their lives, sharing their lives and things like that. But when I look at my life and I ask myself what I really want, you know, I want to find out like how deep and how far this life can go. You know, why not?